यहाँ शेर बैठा हुआ है, मैं यहाँ खड़ी हूँ, लोग यहाँ मुड़ के मेरा फोटो खींचने लगता है. I want to interview interesting Indian people who are doing something amazing and get their stories out there. अब उम्र हो रहा है थोड़ा सा, तो मुझे थोड़ा शादी के बारे में सोचना है. We Biharis can undo the stereotypes. You can never become Indian as a foreigner. क्या बातचीत होगा? क्या बताएं? इनको तमीज है क्या? भगवान का किस्मत से मैं इंडिया पहुंच गया.
I've been following your podcast. I've been following your page for so long, and I'm really interested. I'm really curious to know about your roots, about your background.
I grew up in the US. My dad's an international business person, so I always had that like bug inside. मेरे अंदर एक कीड़ा था कि चलो मैं भी बाहर जाऊं. Like I want to go out and into the world and see the world. And I always thought that I would end up in Korea. I don't know why. I just really enjoyed Korean culture. I saw my dad going back and forth and really wanted to go. But then somehow, Bhagwan ka kismat se main India pahunch gaya. I had got an internship and I eventually was able to live in Haridwar, which is, not a large city whatsoever. And I did a Hindi learning course there, which was absolutely wonderful and foundational for me. And then after 4 years of working, it was an IT company. 4 years of working in this IT company, I had decided, wanted to get married. And I thought, I'm not going to find anyone here in India, right? In this small town where I am. This wasn't working out for me. So I'm like, I need to think about my career also. Am I going to continue to live in India for the long term, or do I need to go back to the US? So I went back to the US, and actually while I was still in India, somebody had messaged me about this guy who was living in Indiana, which is in the central part of the US. Mm-hmm. And they said, he's a good guy. He's wanting to do some volunteer work. His name's Abhishek. He's from Bihar. I thought, oh, okay. That's cool. Connect us. So he connected us. I ended up getting to meet Abhishek when I went to the US, and it was like immediately we just hit it off. How did we not know each other before? Because they had so many mutual friends and all this, and I thought, he's just an awesome guy. And he understood my culture of being in the US and in the Midwest. He had actually come to the US. So I had moved from Chicago to Haridwar in 2006. Mm-hmm. He had moved he was in Pune at that time, Pune to Indiana, which is nearby Chicago, kind of. It's like in the same general area. Mm-hmm. In 2007. Okay. So ulta hua tha. Right. He was in my place, I was in his place for 3-4 years. And so he had been going through this enculturation process. I had been going through the opposite enculturation process. Mm-hmm. And so when we met, it was like, wow, we just had a lot of things in common. We got married in 2010 and with the permission of our parents, and that's a whole other story. Mm-hmm. I have other videos about that on my YouTube and podcast about like शादी कैसे हुई और लोगों के कहने से हुआ और मम्मी पापा की आज्ञा कैसे लिए. And I have all those stories on a different episode. When I came, we lived in the US for 6 years, and we really felt like going back to India was always on the table for us. Mm-hmm. And being from Bihar, Abhishek really wanted to get involved in some kind of NGO work. Mm-hmm. So we got that opportunity in 2016. Mm-hmm. So we moved back here to Bihar. Okay. We had 1 child at that time. Now we have 2 children. Yeah. So what's up, hua? With these experiences, and now, I've been in and out of India for almost 15 years. And लोग मुझसे बहुत पूछते थे कि जैसे आपका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा. लोग same question पूछते रहते थे. People would ask me continuously about the same things. How did you learn Hindi? How was your experience? This, that. And I thought, let me just record some of these things and put it online. Mm-hmm. And Abhishek also had the idea. He goes, I want to interview interesting Indian people who are doing something amazing and get their stories out there. I said, let's do it. So we started the Invisible India podcast with the intention that not that India needs to be represented by me as a foreigner. There's so many amazing people telling their stories. But what are the unknown aspects? Some things which might not be seen by other people, that might be invisible to other people, or they might not have an awareness about certain things. So I wanted to highlight some of those things, some of the amazing people who are doing things behind the scenes, who are doing some kind of social work, who are changing perceptions, stereotypes. That's why I wanted to uplift and then tell some of these stories. So इसलिए हम लोगों ने start किया अपना podcast, and it's been now 2.5 years that we started the Invisible India podcast.
15 years now. India has been your home for over 15 years now. But did it always feel like home to you? Or, what were the points? What were those moments where you felt that, I don't belong here? There is something that is making me uncomfortable. And there might be certain instances that might be making you uncomfortable even today. If you could talk about those challenges, those roadblocks.
To be honest with you, I feel like India is my home. I don't ever feel like I will never feel like India is my native place. And I know some people, this is a very strange thing I've seen online with some influencers or whatever, that they want to be like, main Indian ban gayi. It's like, you can never become Indian as a foreigner. Have some respect, have some understanding of what actually it means to be Indian. The history, the culture, these things which you can never actually access as a foreigner. You can be a guest. You can always be a respected guest. You can live here for a long time, but you will never become Indian. So that's one thing that Indian people in general are so invitational, very hospitable, and they will say, "Oh, tum Indian ban gaye ho, Jessica, ha ye ho," but they don't actually mean that I can go around calling myself an Indian. Right. That's very disrespectful. They mean that, you've accommodated to the culture. And so I would feel like, I do feel like it's my home. I don't feel like it's my native place, and I'll never feel that way. कभी-कभी लोग सोचते हैं कि ये कल शिकागो से आके यहाँ पहुंच के plane से निकली. People sometimes think that when they see my face, they would never know that I've been here for a long time and all that. So sometimes you have to cut through that very quickly. And of course, one way is, knowing the language fluently, that helps. But just having that sense of humility of, we don't need to have every time I talk to someone, it doesn't have to be about, ma'am, aap kahan se ho, aap kitne saal ho gaye yahan pe, aap Hindi bolte ho, aap khana banati ho, aap kya karti ho, ye, aap. It's like, chalo, hum aapke bare mein bhi baat kar sakte thoda sa. So I just sort of flip the conversation. So लोग पूछते हैं आप कहाँ से हो? I'm like, oh हाँ मैं शिकागो से हूँ, वो अमेरिका में है. आप कहाँ से हो? हाँ मैं तो यहाँ से हूँ, इंडिया से. नहीं कहाँ? oh मैं बिहार से हूँ. बिहार में कहाँ? मुजफ्फरपुर. अच्छा तो फिर हम लोग बात कर सकते हैं अभी मुजफ्फरपुर के बारे में. So we can have a conversation about where you are from, what's your background, and it kind of cuts through this strange foreign distance, which sometimes is created when people see me as a foreigner. Right. So I do have moments a lot of times when people treat me like I got off the plane yesterday, and I've had a lot of instances where you have different harassment and things like that. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't happen. It does. But overall, my experiences are mostly good. People treat me with a lot of respect, 95% of the time. And ultimately, as a foreigner, I'm a guest here. So I think that's my ultimate feeling is I'm not entitled to anything. I am a guest, and people treat me very nicely, and that's a bonus.
Definitely. And ma'am, since you shared these experiences, I want to understand, because there are so many foreigners living in India. They also go through certain emotions, right? And everyone is not treated respectfully. Everyone is not treated kindly. What is your message for the people who are the Indians, basically? What is your message for Indians who are looking at these foreigners in a different way? What would you tell them at this point of time? There is harassment on social media. There is harassment in public. What would you tell them?
Most of your listeners probably already understand this. that, people are people. And sometimes, if I ever go to the zoo here in Bihar, at the Patna Zoo, if I ever go there, then sometimes people will be clicking photos of me like I'm an animal. Like यहाँ शेर बैठा हुआ है, मैं यहाँ खड़ी हूँ, लोग यहाँ मुड़ के मेरा फोटो खींचने लगता है. It's like, I feel almost the contrast of like, am I the animal that you're taking a photo of? I think your listeners already understand this, that, I'm a person. Like, I have emotions, I have feelings. I'm not some like, poster child for American culture. I'm a person just living my life, trying to do my life here and with my family and my husband, and you don't have to treat me like I'm some, exotic object. And one thing the last few days, which has been kind of troubling me, is this like fascination with foreign women.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, at least once a week I get a message from some, well-meaning young Indian men. Not all Indian men are like this. I know that. I'm married to a black. Okay, not every man is like what I'm about to say. But some, kabhi log itna badtameezi karte hain, itna, oh my God, disturb karte hain, ma'am, how are you? Give me your number. I want to talk to you. I'm like, married woman. I'm approaching 40 years old, and you're going to ask me for my phone number? Kya, tumko tameez hai kya? Like, do you think, what do you want out of this conversation? What do you want? I mean, मैं दो बच्चों की माँ हूँ. Like, आप क्या करना चाहते मेरे साथ? Why are you asking me for my phone? I'm like, what is wrong with you? I mean, just because I'm a foreigner, it's like this, कोई कुछ चमक है. This is wrong. Like, just leave it as it is. If you want to learn something, if you want to have a conversation about something specific, that's fine. And we need to get over this as this like fascination with foreign women. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of issues with maybe colorism and internalized colonialism and all this. It's there, but I'm like, there is nothing wrong with Indian women that you need to be out, trying to like snag a foreign girl.
Right.
There's nothing wrong. Like, I just don't get it. What is the problem?
No, I understand, because the thought process is something that, we really can't change, and we can only hope that some better sense prevails. Since you have seen both sides of the world, and it's like a blend of East and West that you have experienced in your life so far. From you, if I have to ask that, what is it that Indians can learn from the people in America, and what is it that America can learn from Indians?
I spend a lot of time thinking about this, but I don't spend much time verbalizing, because I, as a foreigner, don't feel like it's my role to say, oh yeah, India needs to learn this from my country. Mm-hmm. Indians should learn about X, Y, Z. That's not my role to say. Mm-hmm. I think people spend a lot of time thinking about this. मुझे अमेरिका जाना है, मुझे job करना है वहाँ पे, मुझे रहना है वहाँ पे. And people already know a lot of the good things about America. Yeah. That's something a lot of people think about all the time. The processes, the infrastructure, all these things. And you can't superimpose those things on a whole culture. So I don't necessarily want to say like, oh, Indians need to learn this. I mean, I don't think that's helpful. I think most Indian people already know, that a lot of the things that need to change here. So I don't necessarily feel like I have anything to add to that. Some of the things I can comment about, things which Westerners, again, very broad statement, can learn from India. Mm-hmm. I think that, again, India is so many subcultures within itself that it's impossible to say, oh, Indians are like this only. North, south, east, west, northeast. There's so many different cultures here. Right. But overall, I would say that just the absolute resilience of Indian people. You see, with this pandemic, it's become very clear how resilient Indian people are. If this would kind of thing would have been happening in the US, I mean, people are like losing their mind after 1 month in US. Arey, lockdown ho gaya, we're in lockdown, and I just have to order my stuff online, and I have to wear a mask in the grocery store, and people were like, losing their mind. And here it's like log apne ghar mein sach mein lock kiya hua band the. Hum log, we can go outside for 4 hours right now in Bihar.
Yeah.
We can literally not leave our house for like 20 hours of the day. We are not allowed. 4 hours you can go out, you can get your groceries and come back. Bus. People in America would be I hate to say so bluntly, but would be committing suicide at this kind of thing. This is not, people cannot do this. But like the resilience of Indian people to deal with these kinds of hardships is absolutely just amazing. And this is one of the things I see over and over. It's just like the patience, the ability to deal with like so much difficulty and suffering and challenging circumstances. People have a very heartiness to them. They're not going to give up. They're not going to complain after one small thing. And I think in the West sometimes we become too comfortable. We become too soft. We become too lazy, and we can complain about the stupidest things. And that's probably my biggest learning of coming to India is, just dealing with the small things of life is not much to complain about.
Right.
So I would say that's one thing that overall that Westerners can learn. Second thing, I'm going to add a second point is, of course, the stereotypical family value is all that. Like, it is really true that people are very committed to their elders and will do a lot of sacrifices for their children's education, things like that. And I think we're a bit on the too far extreme in the West, in America specifically, I can say, where, it's the expectation are not there to care as much for your family. It's an individualistic kind of culture. And it is true. It is definitely true. Sometimes here I think it's a little too much, but it's two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right. And ma'am, since you've been in Bihar for so long, and I recently watched a video on your page where you talk about the stereotypes associated with Bihar. And there's so much that Biharis are known for, which is not true. How would you try and explain this? And is it fair? Is it fair to have a preconceived notion about a state and its people?
I think honestly that only Biharis can undo the stereotypes. I think that Biharis in of themselves can undo these things, because as people like yourself who are doing creative things and speaking up, going to different, you recently have just came from Gurgaon, you're living outside, and people probably have said, oh, you don't seem like a Bihari or something. Yeah. These strange things. It's like, well, I am this is what a Bihari is. I'm representing a Bihar right now. And just kind of saying, you don't have to like shirk back from that. I know when my husband Abhishek first moved to Pune, when he was in his college days, he used to say, "Ha, main UP ka hu," or main North India se hu. He wouldn't admit actually that he was from Bihar because he felt a sense of shame, and that's not needed. I think that it's needed now to say, yeah, I'm from Bihar, and if you're going to judge me, then you're incorrect. Yes. You have a problem. You have an incorrect misperception. Yes. So I think that in and of itself that, as much, again, yeah, media has a lot of bad stereotypes about what's happening in Bihar. We have to stop consuming these kind of things, and we need to stop perpetuating these kind of things if we want these stereotypes to end. That's my, and I say we because, I'm married to a Bihari, I live here, and I'm invested into this, like, my kids are Biharis. Like, I want them to be able to say, like, what's wrong with being Bihari? Nothing. Look what I'm doing with my life.
Absolutely.
Shouldn't that you be proud of that? So
there are foreigners, there are people outside our country who make this mistake of, breaking down a 10,000-year-old civilization into certain, microscopic uh, molecules. What is your perspective on this? Because you are not an Indian, but you know what India looks like today.
Yeah, and I'm bound to make mistakes also.
Yes,
Nobody can represent what India is
exactly.
in and of itself. So um, I think people shouldn't even try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I don't come across that way in the podcast of like, oh, I'm trying to represent all of India. I'm certainly not. There's no way to do that. It's impossible. So I think, we just have to say that from the get-go is, this is not everyone in India is like this, but it's, there are places that are like this. There are places that are like that. It's very, very diverse. And people understand that. And there was just, there's this wonderful TED talk. It's called the danger of a single story. So if any of your listeners want to listen to that later on, the danger of a single story. It's on TED Talk, and it talks about this woman from Nigeria and her growing up, and when she moved to the U.S., people, the way they perceived her and the way that they had like, oh, so in your country, Africa, she's like, first of all, Africa's not a country. These simple things which people would misconceive about her, she had to like fight that a lot. So just understanding that, there's so many, we have to allow for complexities and diversities in the way that we see the world. So we have to, maybe some people need to be reminded of that reality.
Definitely. And how has it been for you adjusting in an Indian setup, in an Indian family?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the first, it was, I felt like I was needing to fit in. I was needing to prove myself in a sense, and needing to prove my, I guess, ability to adapt.
Yeah.
And, now I've known my in-laws for more than 12 years, and it's like there's nothing to prove anymore. उन लोगों ने मुझे स्वीकार किया जैसे हूँ वैसे हूँ. They just accepted me for who I am, and they saw that I'm trying and leaning into them and trying to adapt to them, and honestly, they adapted to me a lot. My ways of doing things, my ways of parenting, my ways of dealing with my kids, they've accepted a lot of things, the way that I do things, and they're okay with that because they see I also adjust to them. And I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate that I have great family here. And of course, it's a long process. Most of my podcast talks about those adjustment processes and what's happened over the years and how that works, how that's settled, across time. But all I can say is I'm very fortunate because people are mostly very accepting of me, very kind. I'm always interested to learn something new, and people are always interested to teach something new, have a conversation about something new. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining me today. It's been such a joy talking to you, and thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to know you, because I've been following your content, but I have always been wondering that one day I will meet her in Bihar.
Thank you so much, Garima. I'm also going to be sharing about you on my wall and on my different platforms. And yeah, I have a lot of different videos and things that I put up, and I'll continue. I'll put your thing out there as well, because people need to follow more Indian creators and people who are speaking up, and that's one of the things that I want to include in my show is elevating Indian voices who are speaking up. That's the point. So thank you so much.